it got the better of me, but he says to me, Johnny, he says, what's that? I says, that's the Hawthorne bush. So I put it up there, and what's it for, he said. Well, I said, no, that is to bring me in good luck tonight. And to keep the fairies out, I said, so I won't be taken out of the bed tonight, I said, and wake up outside it, in the back of the place. You're not serious, he says to me. I am, I said, that's true. And, I think he says it's time for me to go. I'm getting half afraid of you.
I suppose to me, it's actually a symbol of hope. We use it as our logo in the network, and I love the way that it bends, especially in County Clare, it bends over, so I think it's a very strong tree. It's also a very symbolic plant because it was a symbol of fertility a long time ago, so it has so many connotations and so many beautiful things that we can kind of draw from and take from and respect.
The hawthorn symbolically and personally resonates on my heart. I find it beautiful. So I consider hawthorn to be really special medicine because it does work on the heart on all sorts of levels, but there's just this special time where you've got to make the commitment to go and make it as well. You know, you've got to take time out from your life to go and do that at that time of year. It won't wait for you. And there are traditions of it being associated with love and the May blossom, and I always think of those beautiful flowers as being nature's confetti. I've got absolutely no evidence at all that this is where confetti came from, but it's those lovely little round petals that just fall on you, and I really consider it to be the wedding tree. So yeah, I love hawthorn.
I've always been fascinated. It's hard not to be fascinated by that, the white thorn, because it's such a beautiful tree in May every year. It's glorious, you know.
It's such a beautiful flower when you look at it up close, and because it's a subfamily of the apple, to me it actually, the berries look like tiny apples, but the flowers look like tiny little faces or almost like little tiny roses.
Come May, or depending how the weather's running, you will get an explosion of blossoms in the white thorn, as I think of it that time of year, around beginning of May, maybe late April, maybe just a little bit. And it's magnificent because basically what it is doing is it's trumpeting the arrival of early summer or late spring, and it's just gorgeous. And it's a wonderful indicator of the movement of the seasons. If you go to the far end of it then, when it becomes the hawthorn as I think of it, it's absolutely heavy with berries. I've come across ones that are practically bending with berries, giving something back to the birds and everything else. So it's a very kind tree.
And the kids years ago would get the unopened flowers and they would eat them between leaves, and it was known as bread and cheese, and it was a little snack that sustained them maybe on their way back from school.
That when these were in blossom and in leaf, that this was something, if you were travelling, you could just pick these and there was a little meal or a snack for yourself on the way. Bread and cheese.
The hawthorn is very special medicine, even in terms of eating it. The leaves, really, they're only at their best as a food, as a succulent food for about a week. After that, it's when they're just beginning to unfurl, the leaves are tender and they're succulent, and that's the time to eat them. Once they've opened up, they become dry and the flavour's not there. It's just as they're unfurling, they've got a completely different flavour.
So many parts of the whitethorn, or you know, the hawthorn as they call it, are edible. The leaves, the flowers and the berries, and I use all parts of it. There's a lovely story that goes, when all fruit fails, haws. So I suppose I love the abundance of the haws in the autumn, because nobody seems to use the haw berries. but I make a lovely syrup from them. And of course it's a healthy syrup, it's good for your heart.
The tradition, that was the tradition there on May Eve. And what I learned from my parents and from older neighbours around here. And May Eve was a very particular evening before May Day. And this was the evening that everything took place. Like, I remember my mother, she used to take in the Hawthorne, a branch of the Hawthorne bush. They brought it inside. This was to bring good luck.
So the tradition of having a May bush, for example, at Valdelarte, that would have meant going out, cutting a branch, putting it in the ground, outside the house or in the middle of a crossroads. And then people would have danced around the May bush. They'd have decorated it maybe with, eggshells left over from decorated eggs at Easter, bits of ribbons, the kind of stuff you'd have around the house, because people didn't have tinsel and, all the plastic crap that we've got nowadays that we decorate things with. So you would have used whatever you had to hand. That's what folk tradition is about. And so it would have been gorgeous, and it would have been either just a green branch or a branch with flowers. These ribbons hanging on the bush, you could see a connection between those and the tradition of a clooty well. A clooty well being a well with a tree growing close by it, where people would have in the past torn off a strip of their clothing and hung it on the bush if they were sick. And the theory being that as the rag, they were sometimes called a rag well, as the rag deteriorated and disintegrated, that the sickness would also dissipate over that time. So, and that was all very well when we wore cotton or linen or whatever, and things that would rot away. Unfortunately, at a lot of these old clooty wells, people hang bits of plastic bag these days. That's not going to work, that's just not going to work.
My neighbours still put a little sprig of whitethorn outside my door on May Eve, and I absolutely love all those amazing traditions that are still carried on, I think, in rural Ireland.
You'll often find in the folk tradition stories of treasure being hidden under a hawthorn tree, and gold. And when people would go looking for that, if they disturbed the tree, then something untoward would happen to them. If they disturbed it kind of unintentionally, it might just be, pricks from thorns or, a bit of bruising or something like that. But if you were intentionally going to damage the tree or to cut down a whitethorn tree, particularly if it was growing on a fairy fort, then really awful things have been said to happen. One particular man, spoken of in a bit of story, was blinded by hawthorn thorns. Someone else, when they went with an axe to chop down a hawthorn tree, is reputed to have seen blood oozing from the tree and have run off in fright. So, just a warning, really. They're powerful spirit in the hawthorn tree.
The children from the little Gael School around the corner down here on walks. I bring out chefs, young chefs who are very enthusiastic about, I suppose, learning about wild plants and hawthorn and all the things that as a food source. And so we have incredible knowledge, but we need to keep that alive and we need to share it and pass it on and record it in some way. And I suppose that's a beautiful part of this project.
I tried to revive it by doing that, and I put it up to 6, and I put it up to the law this time. Okay, well, I'll again. And I will do it again. I will continue to do it as long as I'm here. I will continue to do it. To try and revive it. Yes, I will do it even better next year now. I will. If the Lord leaves me here. So I will. And why wouldn't he? He's better.